For reviews, interviews, and your daily film picks, click the bell icon and subscribe to Film Companion South now.
Hi Parvathy.
Hi.
Welcome to Film Companion South.
Thank you.
Now I want to start with a question about a word that you keep using in your interviews. Okay, and it's usually when people talk about the movies, they always talk about the set and the shoots. But there's always this very NCERT word that you use, that's this research. And when you use the word research, I'm thinking, what is she talking about? Is she like, does she have notes? So what is this research and when does it start and when does it kind of get over? Do you have a book for every movie?
Oh no, I feel attacked. No, I feel like the Parjappa, I suddenly remembered, you know how after we write an exam, we have to tie the paper up. For some reason, I have gone on to that level.
It's exactly the image that I also have. No. Like the person with the book and paper when the director is talking.
No. I do have notebooks for each character and everything. I have notes. I'm just reading McConaughey's book, Green Lights, and then I'm like reading it and I'm like, oh no, this like not looks like as profound as what he's written, but I always have like little pieces of things that I write on the sides of my notebook. So research, like there are probably pages sometimes about her favorite curry. Or like there are sometimes I'm like, where do you think she was born and like what her father did or something like that. Maybe if there are statistics that she will know. I remember there was one, I don't want to say which character, one space I felt like she knows math really well. For some reason I was like, this character knows math well and I'm terrible at math. And so I remember every day I'll wake up and I'll do...
What's the virus character?
No, 1 into 1 is 1, 1 into 2 is 2. And I'll do multiplication table like until 15 every day. Not because that will do anything for me, but I just needed to see numbers and get comfortable with writing numbers. So that can be also part of the research, right? So it's a mix of everything. There are certain characters that I've made little mood boards for, like just from different paper cuttings and everything. So all that is like, but it has to be a paper and pen. It can never be like on my
computer.
iPhone. No, it just feels very like distant and.
And all this is just for you.
It's all just for me. Nobody's ever seen it, and I think I'm also not that great preserving most of them. So sometimes I will write something and I won't use the same notebook for 2 characters, but I'll probably continue doing my accounting in that, like for my life. You know, so it's never like something that's preserved, like, oh, nobody should see it. I think anybody sees it cannot make sense of it unless it's me. So even if I go back and see something, I think I recently saw a bunch of notes that I had made for Mari. And I remember, like, I have no idea what I'm writing in here. It has no connection to what I performed. So it's over once it's done.
Does this research start from somewhere in the middle because you already know the story?
Yeah.
Or are you just like, oh, from the day she was born in this hospital? Does it start from that stage?
No, not really. And to be honest, not every character gets so many research notes and everything. Some characters that I've done, especially since the director would request me to not delve too much into detailing because they would want me to be a little clueless so that they can mold me the way they want me to be. I've just gone in with like zero research as well. It's more like an emotional like conversation with my director. There are times with certain directors that I've just had voice recordings of our conversation. That'll be like 3-4 hours of recording, and it'll be just like we'll talk about. Yeah, sometimes I'll just play that on the way to the location, you know, like, and it's just 2 friends talking about some random things, and in between we'll come in and say, oh, do you think she'll do this, and what do you think she'll do when she's faced with this kind of a situation. But most of it comes from what we see on screen. So nothing is too far removed from the performance, like what I have to perform in the story, the activities of the character. So if there are specific activities or specific things that she mentions, or like for example, like I've used the word research, right? I wonder where I got it from, right? Like, I don't know. So if there is a particular word that my character uses, I'm like, where did she ever hear that word for the first time? I remember the first time I started using the word articulate was after a Shah Rukh Khan interview. He used the word articulate. I'm like, what does that actually mean? Like the definition. And I Google. And after that, in many interviews, you would hear me say the word articulate a lot more. So there is a bit of mimicking that happens. So I would sometimes want to figure out, does my character mimic other people's vocabulary much? So those things kind of makes me a bit more invested in that space. Yeah.
Another thing I found very fascinating is about how while you are acting in Notebook, it's something you said in an interview before this. So basically it's a scene where you have to do something evil. I mean, not evil, but sly maybe, because you have to kind of, betray your friends.
Yeah,
and you're going and asking Bobby Sanjay, but I won't do this. You know, why
yeah.
should I do this, because I wouldn't have done this.
Right.
And their advice, first of all, can you tell me what their advice was?
Yeah.
And how has your understanding of that advice changed in these years?
Hey, first of all, that is the first piece of advice that has carried me through 16 years of my career. Me sitting right in front of you, I still carry that with me, because that was my first understanding of what acting really is the muscle of empathy that one must be using when you approach a character. So most of the time it's like, oh, you know, put yourself in my shoes. We say that, right, in most of our conversation when we're trying to convince a friend or anybody that we know, like, to see our side of things. So acting is just purely that. So they kind of like boiled it down to that for me. So when they narrated the subject, or not the more than that, the character, I said, if it was me, I would have never done that. I would not do that to my friend. I'll own up to my mistake. I'll stand by my friend even if he heard the whole thing. And Sanjay sir was like, are you sure that you would do all of this if you had lived Pooja's life? And then, what do you mean? And then he explained what Pooja's life has been, and he explained it in such a way that I'm suddenly like, oh my god, I totally get why she did that. Like, no, I see it, I don't condone it, but I'm like, oh, so for her mom was more important. Like, she's a day schooler, she doesn't have a father, her mom struggled really hard to raise her. So her going down this path, she needs to save herself so that her mom's taken care of, but her guilt gets the best of her anyway, so she loses her mind towards the end. So all this suddenly started making sense to me, and I started seeing that, oh yeah, if I were to go through that, maybe I would have protected my mom too, maybe. So that started, like, that lit that fire in for me. Like, I could play a psychopath and I could still try and find why they would have done what they did, instead of me stating that, oh, I judge you. So every character I take on, if there is like a massive distance between me and them, it always starts from like, but why would they do that, but why? So it's always chasing the why, where the research comes from, right? So that's
but
what
is that your job, or is it the writers and
I
directors?
believe it's a collective job. Like, some people don't quite need that much information to perform. I like having that information purely for nuances. And I feel like it gives me a lot more confidence in improvising. So I don't actually research or write anything that my director doesn't want. Or my writer doesn't want. So I have like something that I call a Hermione's bag, you know, the bag where you just put your hand in and like an elephant can come out. You never know. It's a tiny little thing, but I have my bag of tricks with me, you know, if I want it. Like, it's at my service if I need it. I may not even need it for the whole film, but I go prepared nevertheless, because you never know on set. The set of variables on a film location is so many.
Yeah, that's what,
Right? So I would rather have my ammo in place. And I can never even trust my own, like my health for that matter. Like, I could get up in the morning and I might have fever, and I don't have the kind of mental clarity that I thought I would have, that I must have taken for granted earlier. So I might then need to read through my notes, and my notes might have words like chalk powder. That has probably no connection to what is being done, but a chalk powder might be a smell that I think my character remembers from this atmosphere that she inhabits in the scene. And because I'm a sensory person, it helps me get into the zone, and I'm not as lost. So anything and everything, all this research, or sometimes the lack of research, helps me get to the zone and be in front of the camera and perform to my best ability. So that's why. So it could be their job. So I always start by asking questions to my writers and directors. They'll give me a whole set of answers which I will imbibe. I may have questions, but it is their vision that I'm going to take on anyway. But there might be crevices that I will find. So then I fill it with my own, you know, and if that goes wrong and I'm performing and they're like, that's not quite what I'm going for, I'll immediately remove that and plug something else in. So sometimes I feel like I'm like playing a game, like I have these many things and I get to choose which way to sort of build this Lego.
But at least in the beginning, when you talk about this, when you go to the sets with so much preparation, have you at least had one or two instances where what happens on the set is very last minute and you're a little rattled by, okay, I've got so much prepared, everything is perfect in my head, but then now you're asking me to change everything. Has that situation rattled you?
It hasn't happened to me because I never prepare to make it perfect. I prepare to let go.
You leave that space.
I leave it completely. Once I've done the research, I never carry it in my head all the time. I might have, let's say, in the beginning 2-3 movies, but I learned really quickly that it's not a proper equation or a theorem that you can prove to that one answer every single time. You'll get lost very quickly. So it is more like my ammo and what stays back in me subconsciously that I end up using. If it doesn't come to me, I might have written pages on one particular aspect. I may not have even visited that part for the whole of the shooting period, you know. So that's okay for me. As long as I know that I am prepared enough to like save a rainy day, that's all that matters. So I'm not aiming perfection because I think the magic doesn't happen if you are like so set to, but the co-actor is going to do something else altogether and you might have to play that jugalbandi with that person, right? So that's where the magic really, I'm so prepared for that. But what if you get a selfish actor and who doesn't perform with you to help you? What if you get a director who is rattled by many other things, who's unable to have that kind of a moment with you that you are seeking? Then you need to rely on yourself. And I think so far that research is what helps me, and I thoroughly enjoy it too, because me it feels like I'm studying, I'm analyzing, and it's a very anthropological. I think I thought when you said the word that you always use, I thought anthropological is the word that you're going to say.
That's a recent word.
Yeah, for many years now I've been like, it's anthropological in nature. Again, I got that word from Kate Blanchett, not mine. That's when she said that in one of her interviews. I was like, this is exactly the word I've been looking for. This is what excites me about this job, is that I'm studying human beings. I'm studying the patterns that we all, the behavioral patterns. And if not this, maybe I'd be a writer or a clinical psychologist. I don't know. This amazes me. The human brain and the capacity for it to be so flawed excites me.
What about like a character that is really like difficult for you to find that what if or that why, like how, like you're not able to just, she's an evil person, she's like Shabana Azmi in Godmother or something like that. So a character like that you just cannot empathize with. So how do you kind of, is it tougher then?
It definitely is tougher then, but I don't aim at empathizing while I'm performing.
Okay.
I might get to the empathy after I perform the movie released and maybe 10 years later. So I don't need to form that empathetic relationship with the character that I'm playing
at that time.
Okay. But the playing of her, the portraying of the character will help me get there. It's because when you're performing, you're behaving like them, you will have to justify it in your head to make it believable in front of the camera. So when I'm saying, I had to kill that man, like, what are you saying? What else is right? Obviously, that is the only right thing to do. I can't have a shred of doubt about having done that deed, right? So I feel like that faith comes from certain letting go of what my reasonings are going to be. So the first step in this is to remove Parvathy from the equation. The moment I'm reading something, I'm like, but you know, I don't know why okay, you do something else, you get out of the room right now. Let's see what she does. Let's see all the things she does, and then let's not question her. Let's just be her. And then slowly I'll start realizing, or if I don't find a reason, I might create a reason in my own head, but I just genuinely have to trust it. And it gets even more yummy when the character who has done it believes she's done the right thing, but also is doubtful. That becomes even more of a layer, right? Because you know, you want to convince the other person, but somewhere deep within you're also doubtful. You will notice that in Pooja in Notebook, because when Pooja comes in and like Sarah, they run away from the hospital and they're standing in that corridor and there's the school annual day is happening, and Sarah is like, what did we do? What have we done? And Pooja also has that thing. She's not like evil or anything. She has a conscience. She's like, if we didn't do that, this would have been a big responsibility. Like, we can't take that right now. You know, we are this old and we are in school. We have our future to think of. Why is she saying that? She's not entirely sold on that either. Like, and that 17-year-old can't make that kind of a decision unless she's like a psychopath. So I remember at that point having this conversation with the writer saying that, say it with conviction that is laced with doubt. What does that mean? You know, it's so exciting. So yeah.
So, but even right now you use the word that you're kind of separating yourself from the character, right? You're going down the method rabbit hole. This is that process,
the
right?
dreaded method, the hated method.
But of course, when you're kind of going into a character like that. You know, I'll tell you, I'll give you an example of this.
Yeah.
Especially when you're kind of, doing the takeoff interviews and all that. At that time, you kept talking about, do you know that I have a stalker? Like, I have a stalker, and when I go out, I think he will attack me. I think that he will throw acid at me, something you said very specifically. And the next film, or the second film that you did after that, is Uire.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
When you kind of, like, it's actually kind of freaky, right? Somebody who talks about method acting, you talk about your fear at a particular point of time as a stalker who can throw acid at you, and then later on you kind of internalize that and you do a movie where you're an acid attack victim. Aren't you kind of screwing up your head by doing these kind of things?
Aren't I like manifesting amazing roles for myself?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, messing up my head, that ship is sailed. Okay, like that's gone. I am set. I'm having a party on that ship.
Yeah.
So that's not a concern really for me. For me, the concern is always about, okay, have I had a delicious experience, just me and my character and this weird thing called a film set, like where like a bunch of people come with varied ego levels and varied creative levels, and somehow we agree on one shot like to make it a certain way, and everyone works hard for that. I still get amazed when I'm on a film set that for 15-20 minutes or maybe even longer there are light boys and generator and like crane people, all these technicians are working hard to get one shadow right somewhere in the background which isn't out of focus when I'm saying the dialogue. It blows my mind. So I'm like, if that can be called meticulous, why cannot I be allowed to have fun with getting the research done to perform a certain way? Because what it does for me, at least for me, is that I can move any which way. Like it's crazy that I'm saying this because we just spoke about it before we started rolling. It's like capoeira. The way you move, you cannot, the opponent cannot know how you'll be hitting next. And you need to have that sort of a flexible mind and emotional muscle to be able to go any which way. So I have had experiences with certain directors like, okay, we've done the obvious, do something entirely crazy. And I'm like, what do you mean crazy? So for me to go crazy, I need to have some stomping ground to like jump off from. So here if I'm up in the air and everybody is just like going by the gut, I'll be the same in everything. That's my biggest fear, at least, mediocrity in that sense. And then I will have nothing fresh to not just give the audience but to experience myself. So I would say it's about 80% selfishness, in the sense that when a movie can be a super hit, it can be a terrible, like a superb failure, it can be anything. People can love it or hate it, but they can't take away my experience from it, right? Like, at least it's just going to be me and mine. And it's spending about an average of 45 to 100 days sometimes on a film set with a bunch of strangers. I will make sure I'm having fun, because that's my life being spent there. Like any other job for anybody else. So I'm going to make sure. That's what I think method does for me, is that it gives me all the ammo to fly any which handle I want, because I believe just depending on at least on my imagination, I can't generalize this, I find these little tricks help me jump off to different directions with my imagination. Otherwise, if I'm just tapping into myself and my experience, I don't know how much I can tap into my own experience in life, which I have found closure.
I know,
that scares me, because it's not a well that keeps giving.
It sounds amazing when you say it, but you kind of do it to the point where you start having nightmares and dreams about the characters.
I do. But I don't find that
disturbing.
No. Maybe I am weird that way. I don't know. I feel like nightmares or dreams, there are some which I'm not gonna glamorize emotional pain here. But if it is the way the system is coping to tell you that your dreams or your nightmares are ways of your body reminding you that what you performed was a performance and what your life is, it's this, maybe it's a reminder for me to make sure that distinction always remains. I don't have as many nightmares now. It's been 16 years, but I think, like I said, Marianne was 2013 and almost 10 years now. I don't have nightmares like that. I think I detach quicker now. But maybe 10 years younger, I didn't have these ways to get out of it pretty like quickly. Self-preservation skills were
Yeah.
like very less at that age. Right now for me, that preservation, my mental health and all is like extremely important. So I take care of it, yeah.
But I'm asking you this specifically because conventionally speaking, you're not a trained actor, right? You figured out your own method to kind
Yeah.
of act. But at least in terms of, you know, if you had done the traditional route, let's say you'd gone to acting school, or let's say you'd gone to film school, don't you think you would have had like more efficient methods, more efficient tools to kind of do the method, or maybe like a Meissner technique or something like that?
I tried, didn't have the money to go. When I was starting off, it was difficult to, I mean, I wouldn't say it was difficult. I think if I had told Achana and Amma, they might
They would
have
have, yeah.
definitely sent me. But even then, like, I think the societal conditioning in my head is that an acting school or a film school is not worth where, you know, you're going to spend money in. That was a little too much in my system too. But instead what I did is, I was like consuming all kinds of interviews on in the interweb, like whatever we could find. At the time it was inside the actor studio, and I used to download them. There was another website where you can just put the link and like download
before
and
YouTube.
keep.
Yeah.
I lost that hard disk, man. Shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I remember listening to them and also reading Indian actors' interviews, especially Nasruddin Shah and all, and that giving me a lot of like words and like keywords and book names of books and everything, like Stella Adler, Meissner's technique, and I was like, who are these people, right? Stanislavski, I heard, because like everybody would
every
talk
Malayali
about.
knows, I guess.
Yeah, Stanislavski method. So I got all the books, like all the books, the Meissner's technique book, Stella Adler's, everything possible written on Stella Adler at the time, and then Stanislavski, and I started reading and I started watching YouTube videos where like movement acting and dance movement, theatre performances were there, and how certain actors would assign an animal to their character, and then they would just act as the animal, and then slowly bring certain body language of that animal in a very filtered capacity to the character.
Human being, yeah.
It was amazing. So I think I watched a whole series in which one actor was playing Nora in Doll's House, and she considered her to be a swan. And she played like a swan, she became a swan movement wise and everything, and there was a shudder that the swan does, like the with the wings, they do this in the water, and she did all that in a very exaggerated way, and slowly when it came to performing in the scene, she talked, and when she was asked why she wants to do that, she does a little bit of this thing before she says a dialogue, and you don't know where it came from or why it matters to the audience. It doesn't matter. The fact is that the performance is now textured, is that when she is finding something changing in her, or she's questioning something from the status quo, she does this. So she
And she herself doesn't know why.
No, she's not planning that. So you've done the swan so many times that you have derived from the swan certain thing, like even like the looking like this, you know, but why like that, the whole thing, it might be exaggerated in the beginning, but then the more you rehearse, the way I would say like, but why to why is suddenly different. It makes it unique, just the character. So many women have played Nora so many times over, but hers is going to be a swan Nora, like, and so you can do that with characters. Like somebody's like more like a snake. So what all does a snake do? It makes you more of a student of just that creature, and you watch how they slither, how they move, how they breathe, do they have legs? All these elements will come in, and sometimes in one scene, in one certain reaction, you can utilize that. And that's magic in my head, you know, like I feel like there is so much fun in this. And I always feel like I wish I had done more of acting workshops, but I have gone and done over a period of time. I think after the first 7 years into the industry is when I did my first acting workshop, and I went back again for it, and I went back again for it. And wherever you get an acting workshop, you'll find me like trying to go for that, and that's where I fail. That's where like actively I can see myself just keep failing, because I can't get it right, because sometimes I feel I'm too stuck in my head. So to transfer your performance into your body, these places are just magic. So now I'm doing that. I'm hoping that I can continue to do that so I can get better at acting in different ways. But yeah, I wish I had done that at a younger age, but I did the best with the information I had at the time. So yeah.
But let's go a little more deeper into what happens in your head, okay? Especially during a shot. Let's talk about one of my favorite shots of yours, and that's the mirror shot in Uire, and it's kind of a mirror movie in the sense that it sets up two mirror scenes before this mirror scene. One where you have a nice moment with the Asif Ali character, and the other where you're wearing your uniform. And it kind of prepares you, it's like an echo for this character, right? And it's a single take, so you don't have the crutch of a close-up or a cut or anything like that. And of course you'll remember the shot perfectly well. I just need to kind of repeat it because people might not remember it the same way. So it kind of begins behind you, and then you kind of see Siddiq sir's reaction until the camera kind of stops and you kind of see yourself for the first time with the attack. What is going on in your head at that time?
So the information I required for that particular shot was, what am I physically feeling? Because I wanted to know from the doctor that, am I numb? What are the places in my body I have pain? What are the procedures done on my face? Do I feel my skin stretch or no? Do I feel pain yet or no? Can I move my face enough? And am I aware of the fact that my face can't move like before? So I had a list of medicines that were injected into me. I knew what medicines
your character
might have had. So what makes her groggy, and how long she's been in the hospital, going in and out of the grogginess. So for me it was very important to know when she's getting up and turning around and looks at the father, how genuinely like groggy and like what kind of brain fog she has. So it was that is the information I went for than how she was feeling. Because I think our feelings, like especially you after they give you that medication for wisdom tooth removals, like you're so funny, right? Like you find everything, you're talkative and all of that, but that's not the case in this. So I realized that you can't quite feel what is done to your skin. You can't quite feel your skin because all these medicines kind of make your fingertips numb. So it was important for me to just like lay on that bed for as long as I couldn't feel my legs and arm much, and without moving and twitching. It's very hard to actively do that, because if you're on the bed for too long, you're just like, okay, I think I need to shift a little, and here I'm not drugged at all, right? So I'm pretending. So after a while, it really gets uncomfortable to keep your legs and hands still. And I stayed with it. They're setting up the camera, like different things are happening, people are talking, some are whispering. I'm like zoning them out as much as possible, but I'm uncomfortable. I know for a fact that I've made myself uncomfortable, so that relates to the grogginess.
Yeah.
You see, that's the method I took. It's a physical way in. And for me to just stand up to, like, the thing is, I didn't look at the mirror before. When they did the...
Was the first time you are also seeing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I made sure that I was it. But the thing is, it's not the first time I'm seeing myself in the thing, because I've done
photo
some...
shoots and all, yeah.
No, I've done scenes before also.
Okay.
But I haven't seen this first version of it.
Okay.
I have seen the dried up a little further in version of it. Like we've already done the lipstick scene, all of that.
Yeah.
So, but at that time, the weird part is that I would step out of the vanity and go to the set, and there are people around, and there is no umbrella being held up for me or something. People won't notice me, right? Like as an actor, they look and they'll immediately, like their eyes will widen, and that's when even I, as an actor, would suddenly remember, oh, I do have this makeup on, okay. Because after a while, I had gotten so used to having it on to me that I wasn't reacting badly to it. But for this one, this took like close to 5 hours, and even for that one, I was laying down on the hospital bed when they were doing the thing. And every time they would bring me the mirror, it's only when they were taping down my lips to the side that I had to look at the mirror. After that, whatever coloring, all the gels that are coming on, I wasn't looking. So it was also that initial reaction of this, and truthfully believing this is my reality, that there is no going back from this. You can't pull it out, you can't do anything. So it's tapping into that mentality that worked for me. There's a 3 elements, right? One is not seeing it, one is making myself physically extremely uncomfortable, and then this. And the thread throughout the film is betrayal, is that this is a man I loved. This is a man I really loved. And you kind of tap into every single time that you feel like betrayal can come from any person, right? Can I trust again is a major... it's a grief, it's like death to you, right? So that is what makes, at least for me, Pallavi cry than her physical appearance. It's not what has happened to her face that is shocking her, it's that I thought it was a bad dream.
And it's an amazing thing, because when you're expecting a scene where a girl is seeing herself for the first time, nobody's thinking that she's worried that, oh, I'm not going to be good looking anymore. That's not even occurring in your head.
All. It comes much later. So you always see, like, there's another scene I wrote for Pallavi in the hospital that is not ever going to be. It was not even planned as something to shoot. Is that she sleeps that night when she sleeps, her father is like sleeping right next to her, like holding her hand. He's just like sleeping like this, and I was thinking it's one of the things that I heard from one of the girls at Shiro's, is that they say that you forget you have this and you scratch because your muscle is here and you feel an itch, and she scratches and that hurts so bad that you've gone in and scratched right there and it's the father getting up and holding the hand down and making sure he holds the hand down and sleeps. In sleep, let her not move and turn around onto this side. Those are the things that stayed with me more. I asked the girls, what are the soaps that you use? Do you have to use a certain kind?
Sensitive
does it hurt
soap,
when you go out to the sun? For how long does it take until you can actually go out into the sun? These are elements of your day-to-day life. How does she brush her teeth? Like, what does she have to get a different kind of brush? And what kind of toothpaste can she use? And food can she eat? These are the elements that would come in more handy as an information for the performance than anything else, I feel like.
But even in that shot, if you observe closely, I don't know if you're registering all that, or is it just like muscle memory, but then it looks like you're going to put your forehead onto your father's shoulder, but then you're holding it back because you're realizing, no, I can't. Because it's going to hurt. So are these things like that's...
No, those are just out of my...
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known the detailing and the texturing of it. It's just, see, this is how much you know, and then you go for it and you have no idea what will be
something else takes over.
Thankfully, that was done in one shot. The camera, the movement, everything came in. Like, if the camera doesn't come in one shot again, we have to do it again anyway. The scene after that also, where like she runs into the bathroom and her friend comes in, is also another shot that was done really quickly, where everything came together, thankfully. And that was also really heartfelt, because it's my friend who's holding me, and you're not expecting, you're trying to be strong, and the last thing you want is someone comforting you.
Correct,
because you're holding it together somehow, and you think you need to hold it together. And her friend is the only person in front of whom she doesn't need to.
Not even the father.
Not even the father. So in front of your friend you can do that. Sometimes you have to kind of mother your parents. You have to be the parent for your
you have to be the
parents.
stronger one. And all of this, of course, we talk about a movie like Uhire, but then you talk about you thinking like this from the time you're 17. What do you do in those films where you have nothing? You cannot approach that film like this. Like, it's not leave empathizing. It's not your universe. Like, you don't understand that movie. What do you do then?
Have I done something like that?
Like, let's say like a mass movie or something like that. Like one of the films that it's not, they understand it, I don't understand it, but you have to do it, and you have to do a good job at it. So what do you kind of do then?
I have done the same amount of research for my Kannada films.
It's already a drinking game now.
How many times? Take a shot.
Yeah.
No, it's just my Kannada films in which I go to Switzerland and I'm like dancing around in the Alps. Done the same amount of research.
Really?
Yeah. Same. I've done My Story with Prithvi.
Yeah,
we are in Portugal. Dancing around, it's the opera house, it's romantic. Same.
My God.
It's funny because like we did have conversations where he'd tell me how he approaches and how I approach. I'm like, great, like this. We are both in the same frame, and two actors cannot be so different than like we are.
A stardom related question, okay? I'm talking about current scenario, and it's a hypothetical question where, let's say like someone like you, who you can get any movie made. Somebody comes to you and gives you 1,000 crores and says you can make any movie you want. And we're talking about a world where Uyere is not making 1,000 crores. What kind of movie will you make then? Because I remember you mentioning Black Widow here and there. So will your brain go that direction, or do you already have like a 1,000 crore script idea right now?
I don't. I think personally I feel I haven't had a single moment where I've thought of the budget and the opulence of a project. For me, the kind of projects that I envision or the stories that I see in my head are the most intimate,
Oh, even your dreams are like that.
Like everything is like exactly like the way I envision some conversations even. So I have to work really hard to create a choreography of visual opulence. Like it takes a while for me to get to that.
It's not in your system.
It's not in my system. In my system, it's the most like it's something like Blue Valentine. You know, for me that is my dream, it's my cheesecake, if that's a way to say it. Like that's my jam, and I can probably spend 1,000 crore on that. Like, you know, it'll still look as real as that, but it'll be that. But I haven't ever thought of, oh well, there is one subject. Okay, I can't digress. Like there is one subject that I know is like an extremely commercial, a kind of a mind game project that I have like envisioned. That yes, that can use so much money. But I am like, dude, give me like a good 5 to 6 crores and I can make a decent film. I mean, I don't want more than that. If it makes great money, well and good. But I can make a really good, decent, watchable, fun, entertaining film for this much.
But I always wished you do a little bit more comedy.
I want it. Yes, say it again. Say it again.
So like I'm appealing to the directors.
Thank
please.
you guys, like to all the cameras.
Maybe like a universe.
I'm good at comedy. I am. I promise.
Like the universe of like a Girish AD or something. I think you'll kill it. Like I think you see like sparks of it here and there in maybe 2 or 3 films.
Really?
But yeah, I mean that you can do it.
I know. The thing is, I would like for directors to actually audition me. This is me manifesting it. Like, I'm not saying take my word for it that I'm good at it. Audition me for action, for comedy, for really dark psychopathic characters. I can really do that. And I just feel sometimes like this culture of zero auditions affects the ones who have already sort of established themselves. So I do go for auditions, by the way. There are international films that I've gone for auditions, not one that I have landed. But
Marianne was an audition, right?
Marianne was an audition, but it was, I would still say that is like a
little bit of,
it was still like a pow kind of an audition. Like now that I think about it, that time I needed the movie more because I needed to pay my bills and I wasn't getting any roles, and I was like, oh, I really need this money and this job. But I do those other auditions and it's such a great experience because the casting director comes in, or sometimes the directors too, but sometimes it's mostly the casting directors, and they create an atmosphere as if for the whole day that you're auditioning, second callback, third callback, you're actually performing in the film. So once I do it and I don't get the job also, I'm like, I've had a good time. So I genuinely enjoy auditions. I'm so scared. I'm so nervous that, you know, I can't quite function. That's how much I psych myself up. But then once I'm done with the audition, I'm like, this is so refreshing and so freeing for me because I feel like really molded into one genre for this long. Not saying I don't enjoy it. I think I'll continue to enjoy dramatic roles for a very long time. If that's the only thing that comes to me, I'll make the best of it and I'll do a good job. But I genuinely feel like the director Tanuja, I hope she doesn't mind that I'm saying this. Tanuja's actually said that, dude, why haven't you done a comedy? I'm like, why aren't people hiring me?
Right? Yeah.
It's not even about that. I don't think Kareeb Kareeb Single is where she found that from. I think after 2 years after Kareeb Kareeb Single, she met me for an event and she's like, Parvathy, why aren't you like, it's in the general way I speak. I mean, I'm still a lot toned down for the interview, but like otherwise when there is a certain thing, I hope that I can bring that up. Let's hope.
I need to ask you like one serious question. You know, Parvathy, like, I mean, I've seen so many interviews of yours, and more than the interviews, so many controversial things that keep happening in your life. But I'll tell you the difference. Let's say another actor, like a male actor in a particular situation. Let's say he gets caught for something like, okay, speeding or something like that. The comments when that news breaks will be something like, avanda hangaram, alengi paisa, something like that. But the second, if you were to get into that, it will be womanhood should stop driving, feminists should stop driving. It's never you, you know. Like even your mistakes are not just yours alone. What is the emotional toll of being like this symbol, this representation of you know, like a new kind of Malayali woman or whatever, you know? What is the toll it takes on you?
Lot of therapy. Lots.
Lot of rich therapists.
Lot of therapy. Lot of people who've like I really wish there was like insurance for things like these, but no, but I think I'm finally at a state right now as I'm sitting here speaking to you where I have reached a certain sense of
Zenness?
not zenness, definitely lots of chaos, but there's a calm in it for me. Like, I'm not resisting it anymore. I'm not trying to correct anyone anymore. I'm not trying to expect the best out of people. In fact, I've turned into someone who expects the worst out of people and still be okay with it. You are the best, good for you. Like, it's not benefiting me, it's not for my sake. If you're doing the best, great. But I think it comes and goes. I do have my dark days. I'm not saying that, oh, I've achieved some kind of enlightenment, but I'm definitely not as affected and afflicted like, let's say, in 2017, 2018. I think the pandemic had a major impact.
You had to deal with all of us had to,
Actually, to be very honest, this is going to sound so arrogant. I was one, I probably have to beep it out if I say that. I was one of those morons, like, who enjoyed the time off. That is a bad thing to say at this point, because the number of people who have experienced loss. But as an artist, I realized, okay, I was safe. I was in my friend's house on lockdown for several months before the airports opened up. And in that period, I could actually rest as an actor, read books and just focus on, and I did like an online course on law and everything. And I'm like, how many people get to do this? And all around you, it's just destruction and loss of life and loss of income. It humbles you. Like, you don't have the courage to utter a word of like, oh, I have it so tough. It just went away. Everything went away. My entire priority shifted, the alignment shifted, not actively, not that I had some kind of a major breakthrough on the third month. It's happening now. Now, 2020, I didn't realize it. 2021, I hadn't realized it. It was all up in my head. But 2022 has done things to me, because I'm back at the workforce. Like, I mean, work has started again, and you're on film set. And you suddenly start realizing none of these commenters and people are mattering to me anymore. Doing your thing, and you just keep doing it. Like, you're not stopping, because you need your results to come in whenever it is. So you've done your part. That's all. It doesn't really affect me anymore.
I also remember you mentioning somewhere that you were once a Yash Raj fangirl.
I would say definitely yes. I was let's just say that I have watched K3G a lot more than I would care to admit. Yeah, so I definitely was a very like all Dilwale Dulhaniya, all those kind of. I'm a big fan. I think Yadein was one of the. Well, let me finish.
Yeah. sorry.
That's rude. Yeah. Like huge Subhash Ghai fan, like after Tal and everything, and then Yadein was the first time as a non-actor. I'm still like in school and everything that I was like, oh, it can go wrong too.
Oh, okay.
You know, but I didn't admit it then. I was really just because I remember buying the cassette and like playing A side and B sides too many times till it broke and everything.
So, but were you still that fangirl when you started acting? Or had it changed by then?
I think what changed for me was Notebook. Notebook really impacted the way I looked at films, because I was also the time when I started watching other kinds of films, like anything that's not Bollywood, and like watching more Malayalam films even, like for that matter. I think I didn't even have enough of that experience. I watched Malayalam films that came in Doordarshan maybe, and then it used to be maybe visiting a friend's home, and because we didn't have cable connection, so if I go to a friend's place, then I immediately keep Star Movies, or let's say HBO, if they have HBO, fancy people will have HBO, right? And so watch one of the films, and I remember watching like Free Willy and all, so
Star Movies,
Star Movies, Free Willy will keep coming, or like Mrs. Doubtfire or Mr. Bean, and you know, so those were my only ways, and going to the theatre and watching film was a luxury that we couldn't quite afford when I was growing up. So, but my parents would still take me. I think my first was Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, and then scattered here and there, and I think Nandanam. And that's when I think the bug had already kind of set in that I want to be an actor. So I think Navya's performance as, you know, Balamani was like, oh wow, I want to be an actor, and also like very dramatic, very much in that space. I used to also be a Balaji fan. I used to also watch serials. Kasauti Zindagi Ke for the win. Like getting into the bus and talking to my seniors and juniors, like Bustle, we always have groups, right? Like, did you say Anurag said that? What did Prerna say? What about Prem? Prem died. Oh no, like, I mean, it was a phase for sure. And then I don't know, from out of nowhere, it just stopped.
What would that Parvathy say if she'd become this Parvathy today?
Oh no, no idea. Oh, that's not a space I want to even go to. Not that I'm not for it. Like I'm not saying that I'm ashamed of that,
Yeah,
because
of course,
that
yeah.
gave me, I remember, like, I think one of the key characters died, and I remember running to the kitchen and standing by the water filter and crying, because I know mom and dad will whoop me if they saw this is what I was crying for, because I couldn't handle it. I'm like, I know that Prerna and Anurag are going to get a divorce because now Prem is dead, their love is pure, and Rishabh Bajaj, like, I'm angry. This is so internalized in me, and I don't know when it stopped. I think it's probably because of my chemistry classes in 12th standard that it finally stopped. That I
chemistry.
watched.
You had to study a lot.
It was tough.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was like, it really took over. Like, it gave me a reality check in life. So then it just stopped. And then by that time, I already got into films. So I think Flash.
But this wasn't the choreography you planned. At 17 and 18.
No. I wanted to be an actor for sure. I wanted to try it out, so I did out of syllabus.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, going back to being an anchor, and then I went back, and then the audition for Notebook happened. Notebook shifted everything for me. But even then I didn't decide. Even then my plan was to go to Canada, study creative writing and something else altogether. So my mom and dad always was like, you still have an out. And by that time I think Pooh happened for me. And Pooh shifted it a lot more. I think it was also the first time I think my family, they kind of understood that I really enjoy playing these kind of characters. And then I moved out, and then I had to pay bills, so I didn't stop. It became a job.
And my last question to you, Parvathy, after, like, I mean, I don't have to keep saying you go through so much and all that, but then of course, let's say after all this, you stay strong and you remain strong and all that. But how do you kind of do that without becoming bitter?
Oh, I am bitter.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but seriously, I'm like this in front of you guys, like sparing you all. No, I get very
So
bitter.
you use like a magnifying glass to kill ants and all that?
No, not that bitter.
Not that bitter, yeah.
That bitter. I don't kill ants. I detest people who kill ants like that, or insects. Just they like portal, some insect, like, let's go kill it. I'm like, who are you? I do get bitter. I do get very hopeless and cynical. But then I do have my people who put me back onto the track, and so right now I am at a good space. Like, good for you, I'm in a good mood today, and I'm not bitter. But otherwise, my answers are probably going to be all laced with this impending doom that we basically are heading towards. But I think I'm making my peace with that also. So bitterness is not working out for me right now, but it can happen at any point. And I'm also like someone who's actively struggling with mental health issues. So I know that at any point that sort of like that veil can come on, and then I can do nothing about it. So it's fine. It comes and goes, the bitterness. I'm definitely not someone who can just keep happy and all of that. I get angry super fast. I work on it. That's why I say therapy for the win. Like, anybody who's working on themselves, going to therapy, they're like my heroes. I'm like, thank you, because of you I don't have to work that hard on myself, because you're not inflicting pain on me. So I believe as long as I know that there is a way out and my people are taking care of me, my bitterness is kept on check. But yeah, that's how it goes.
Thank you so much for speaking to me, Parvathy.
Thank you.
I hope one day you give me an interview as one of your characters. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. But don't like kill me.
I think I'll just go off on that spectrum. I'll never come back to Parvathy after
but
that.
It'll be nice. Let's try it. Let's see where it goes.
Well, you all are like witness to this now. If I go off on that handle and tomorrow like somebody named Pallavi did something, like will be like on news.
No, we'll just like a calm character.
Right, okay. There's not a Batman like suddenly. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
It was
Parvathy.
such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.